Are we in a housing boom or in a housing bust? My name's Evan Kaufman, your VA loan originator, here to help just talk through some of what we're seeing in the housing market today. Bust or boom? What are we seeing in housing? You might have heard the old term, location, 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 used all the time in real estate. I almost hear it to the point where I'd roll my eyes because it's just such a common term. Yes, location, location, meaning effectively the area that it's at makes all the difference. The reality is, though, it's a very true comment. So in today's environment, for example, we see across the spectrum in the United States very broad changes in housing appreciation, or in some cases depreciation. But as a whole, when we look at it, we can gather one consensus. So here to start, I'm talking about some of the micro things we're seeing, and at the end, hit on just what it kind of seen at a broad level as a whole, especially over just the last few months, kicking off this new year. So looking at location, 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 it really does matter to a good degree. I'll hear from folks, man, the housing market's just terrible. And where are you at? And we'll talk that through. I work in almost every state in the country for the most part, right? Especially with military installations, licensed in 30 some states, mainly where there's military families going. That's my background, serving military families, VA loans, that's a focus. So some areas I'll hear, it's really tough here, but then other areas that it's really good. I mean, we just use some examples, especially touching on some big media things that have occurred recently. We look in California, and in that case, there's actually some microcosms in only different areas of California, but just look at the fires that have happened in LA. I mean, we have some blocks where homes now are selling for 50% of what they would have been just a few months ago before the fires were occurring. Terrible situation. Then the some blocks over, home prices have skyrocketed because the demand is still really high for there. Maybe because people feel the fires won't hit that in the future, but they still want to live there. There's lower housing inventory. It can be all over the board, just literally block by block. Rents skyrocketed. Sales prices in the areas where the fires were dropped dramatically. Home sale prices are increasing in the areas around it. Very microcosm spot, looking at very case-by-case basis, even block by block. But that's where you can see location, location, location really can matter a lot. Flip to the other side of the country, Washington, D.C., with the recent political climate change. Right now, this is end of February, we're doing this right now, February 20th, 21st here. And you look at the news, a big thing that's come on last week is listings are up dramatically in Washington, D.C. It's like 50%. Big growth in listings because everyone's listing their home because they might be getting laid off with the political climate right now. There's things going on, I say with DOGE, government efficiency, right? Trying to clear things out and folks getting either scared and getting ready and preemptively listing, or they're actually getting laid off and listing. So in D.C., we're estimating what we're going to see happen with housing prices because listings have gone up dramatically in just the past 30 days. Again, micro market though, where we're seeing some of that. There's other places though where it's starting to feel a little warm and hot in terms of things moving quicker. And personally, when we're trying to look at a broader market level, I see the areas where we have those small pockets, like dealing in DC. It's actually a lot of our clients. Virginia, Maryland, again, active duty military, 70% of our business. DC is like the hub where a lot of people go mid-career. So we're dealing with a lot of those loans right now in those areas. And we see that market with the changes that we've talked about just now here, just what's going on with listings and everything. But that's kind of a unique case. Again, location, location, location. Broader market as a whole though, I'll say we're seeing people be just a little more optimistic in general. And the way I like to put it is just pent up demand. If you look at interest rates and mortgages, they've been elevated now for nearly 3 years. Used to be that I'd get on the phone with someone and be like, hey, Evan, what's an interest rate? And all of a sudden we were talking, really low back in the day. People could get interest rates in 2%, 3% range. Some people could buy it down a little bit, even get in the ones. Absolutely ridiculous. That was your, 2020, 2021, early 2022. But then all of a sudden, early 2022, if you remember, things started to shift and change. All of a sudden rates started going, and by 23 and all of last year in 24, rates were elevated. We're now on the 3-year mark from when rates started increasing. By the end of this year, we'll have 3 full years of elevated rates in the 6 to 7% range at some time during those years, which is pretty crazy. So what I just think we're at is folks are now more used to it, which honestly isn't a bad thing necessarily. Folks finally are realizing, hey, okay, mortgage rates, they've gone up from where they were in that blip of the past, in that 2020 period of where it was. And now we're back up more elevated to where we've been historically, you could say, and folks are getting more used to it. And it's kind of been like that 3-year mark where, okay, I got to move again. Housing stock turns over every 7 to 10 years. The average American's moving every 7 to 10 years. It's getting older and older, or I should say longer and longer. But theoretically then, we're 3 years into a big turnover essentially, and we're now just seeing people getting the urge to want to move. And we're feeling it. We're feeling it in our business. We're seeing it outside when we're working with real estate agents, getting a similar feel. And we have a unique perspective because we're working in so many different states, be it that we're doing their VA loan or we're ultimately working with agents that work in those areas. And we're getting a general consensus that we're seeing that pent-up demand starting to release. Now, will we see that clear out through the whole summer? I don't know. Could there be some major economic shift or change? Yeah, there always can be. I mean, there were folks before 2008-9 that thought everything was still fine and dandy until it wasn't. That was just though a random freak blip, but could those things happen? Sure. But right now, we're sensing that overall demand just to start releasing it. I don't necessarily see any end in sight to that unless there's some major outside factor that occurs. Folks are just ready to move. I understand that. In our own personal life, I get that. My wife and I, it's one of those deals just right now where it's like, God, you get that itch and ready to go. Most folks have become accepting of where rates are. And remember the beauty of, especially if you have to do a VA loan, the beauty that you can do is what's called a streamlined refinance, interest rate reduction or finance loan. So if we ever get that opportunity of rates pulling back, you can take advantage of those easier than just about every other loan type, which is really cool. So folks now understanding that because we've started doing those things, getting used to just where the rates are at for things, the economy doing better than expected over the last couple of years. We always thought there'd be some flip and turn or some turnover and things would get worse, but it just hasn't happened. I think folks are just ready to move, and that's an okay thing. However, as I said in the beginning of this, location, location, location is still very real. Even in this market where we're feeling that pent-up demand releasing to go buy homes, there's still those areas where you're going to have those unique scenarios. Washington, D.C., for example, what's happening in L.A. and other micro markets where you'll see those, just know there's a broad hole. We're seeing it getting a little bit warmer. If you want to discuss any of that, more than happy to do that with you. Again, my name is Evan Kaufman, your VA loan originator. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.